Welcome, everyone. I am happy to say that we have Myola Woods with us today, and welcome.
Thank you, Barbara. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome. Well, audience, let me tell you a little bit about her. So Myola Woods is an author, certified sexological body worker, somatic sex educator, and international intimacy and relationship coach. She is a pioneer with courage who bravely speaks about things that make most of us uncomfortable. Myola will gently lead you out of your comfort zone and into the pleasure zone of personal growth and higher self-awareness. She specializes in teaching individuals and couples the art of connection, creating and cultivating the choice of arousal to deepen intimacy, sensation, and pleasure, even if it has been a long time. As a sexual being, mother of 4 teenagers, and pleasure enthusiast, Myola appreciates the time constraints, daily and social pressures that can play havoc on our erotic lives. She teaches ways to explore and enhance your lovemaking in everyday life, using techniques and practices that can turn you and your life on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barbara, for your warm introduction. That's beautiful.
You're welcome. So, how does somebody know when it's right to become intimate with a new person that they have just brought into their life?
Okay, that's it. Well, we're going straight in there. I love it. Well, I suppose there's no, we have stories and we have, we need to wait until the 3rd date, or we need to do this, or, we certainly shouldn't do anything on the 1st date. And I think that beyond that, when does it feel right? And so how do we know what feels right for us? So often, for me particularly, I say to people in new relationships that is like a golden time, a golden opportunity to not rush into something and if we think about it, you don't get those moments back. You don't get we can play with it a little bit and we can, move into, but you don't actually, the first time you do something together, the first time you touch each other's skin, the first kiss, the first, moment that, there's a tongue up the neck, they're hair raising, goosebump moments. We don't get them back so sometimes I often tell people to slow down. And slow down for a number of reasons, and I'm likely, slow down is one of my very popular things, so I'm likely to talk about it a lot. But slowing down and really savouring the moment, but also slowing down so that we can feel what's going on for us, feel when it is right, feel what's happening in our bodies, whether our body's responding. Often when we move very quickly, we sometimes miss the nuances and miss the subtleties that our body's trying to communicate with us. So often if we slow down and really enjoy those special moments, those first moments, and so we can really, so I think it's a little bit beyond, like a little bit more than when's the right time. It's how am I feeling and there's something about building anticipation as well, building that tension, building that sexual chemistry, building that longevity. I suppose the other thing, Barbara, is what are we looking for this? Are we looking at this being a long-term relationship, or are we just wanting a one-night stand or a quick fling? Like what are we wanting? And if we're wanting something long-term, often it's worth waiting and building those right foundations.
That's correct. I would agree with that. How does intimacy enhance a relationship once a couple gets to that point?
Okay, so intimacy you know, if I'm working with someone who's single, and so, you know, the two people that I kind of work with really are, or is single women who are looking for more and looking for a relationship, or women who have been in a relationship for a very long time and maybe the spark has kind of left, or, you know, they've become friends rather than lovers. And so, but the way I work with people often, I mean, even though they might sound like two different things, is often very close to the same. So intimacy, because what intimacy does is we're mammals and we're wired and we all long for connection, to be seen, to be heard, to be loved. I mean, that's, you know, that's what drives us. That's how we're wired. No matter how much, you know, people, society, Facebook tells us we need to be independent and we need to be this and do ourselves, and we need to have independence, obviously, but also there's a place for interdependence, not codependence. So we don't want, you know, we don't want to live over in codependency land either, but that interdependence, and that interdependence often is intimacy. And one of the big ways of getting to intimacy is vulnerability. And often we don't want to go there. Often we want to, you know, blame other things, or we want to talk about superficial things, but we're not often willing to talk about some of the things that make us, you know, a little bit raw, a little bit, you know, on the edge, a little bit, you know, will someone judge me? Will someone still love me after they hear this story? But, you know, if anyone's ever done any personal development work, you know, you've been, I'm sure you've been and had the experience of connecting with somebody so raw and so emotionally that you feel like you've known them for eons, and you have no idea what they do for a job or what they do for a living, or like any of those kind of world things, those mundane things, but you feel so connected to them. And even if you only see them every now and again, there's this connection that you just can't, that there's not words for. There's only an essence. So when we're in a relationship, if we can bring intimacy, you know, emotional intimacy, spiritual intimacy, often we think being naked is, you know, that's showing, you know, and to a degree, depending on who you are and what sort of body image you have, being naked can be very vulnerable. But sometimes it's not necessarily, you know, when we're naked emotionally, when we're naked spiritually, when we're naked in all of our realms, then that is when we connect with someone on a much deeper level and move it beyond where it's all about sex, or it's all about intercourse, or it's all about, then it moves into, you know, you can play all day. You can send little text messages, you know, they don't have to be, I think sometimes when we have our mind that says, well, you know, I'm no good at dirty talk, or I'm no good at that sort of thing. But sometimes it's the simple things, you know, telling someone you're thinking of them, telling somebody, you know, that you're waiting for them, that you're cooking their favourite meal, telling them what you want to do to them when they get home. Like, I think that, you know, we've read too many novels and we've, you know, been corrupted by porn that we think we need to be sending these dirty text messages. Sometimes it's not sometimes it's the subtlety and it's the nuances that keep that spark alive, keep that fire burning.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. Because in a marriage or that a long-term relationship, things can get stagnant, and that would be a way to spice that up and, you know, bring back the connection that one desires with their permanent partner.
I think there comes a time, and whether I think, you know, it's probably talked about with women more than men, but I think for both, or all sexes, all bodies, that the body wants more. The body wants more connection, and it wants that deeper involvement, rather than, you know, quick and over and done with, or it's a chore at the end of the day, or any of those things. It wants more. And often what I find working with people is that we've, those things have got in the way, that we think it's a chore, or that we've, confused our sexual being with someone else or something else, and we're not living it as we could be. But there is a time for everyone where, we want more, we want that deep connection, and we're not just, the body and the mind and the soul is not happy with just physical aspects or just one aspect of a relationship, and it needs to be more. And we will go to, often people don't know the beautiful thing about doing this summit, Barbara, and doing these talks, is that people get to know there are people like you and I that can help them and can help them navigate through some of this, through the storm or through the rockiness, so that there is help, and that we don't have to put up with or tolerate, or, because often I think we don't know, or we know that there's a yearning, we know there's something, but we don't know how to get it. We don't know where to go to get it because we don't talk about it. So one of the reasons I love these sorts of summits and talks is because people get to hear, I'm not alone. There are other people that feel that they want more connection, they want more love, they want more spice, they want more intimacy, they want more depth. We want more in our life.
Absolutely. So maybe people in our audience are of the age where women are dealing with menopause issues, and how that does affect their sexuality and abilities. Would you be able to talk about that?
Sure. So when I speak of menopause, I'm speaking from experience of working with clients and my research and my studies. It's not, so I'm not, to be clear, I'm not talking from a personal part. I've had 4 children. I've had different births, and I've had scar tissue, and I've had different arousal levels at different times, which leads me, into this journey of trying to discover what is going on. So I just want to make that clear. This is not something I've worked on for me personally. So menopause can be very interesting, and I think we're, in our society, we don't always, revere it and think of it as a time of change and a time of opening and a time of deepening. And so the women I work with a lot around menopause, it's a lot around the getting them in touch with their innate sexual selves, their sensual selves, their erotic selves, that part of them that maybe they never have really fully explored, or maybe something happened and they didn't, sometimes, the beauty about my work is that, it often sounds much more sexier than it really is. Often, we're in the trenches digging out, what is in the way of us living our full potential, our full, however that looks for us. Because everyone, it's about finding our authentic selves. So sometimes I get to hear the stories, or often I get to hear the stories that have never told anyone. They've, whether it be abuse or trauma, or, they were young and they got an STI, or, something happened and they got pregnant, and, maybe, whatever they did, whatever choices they made, sometimes, that sticks with us. We hold that in our bodies. Or, a young lover has said something to us about our bodies, or about our sexuality, or about how we are. And, we don't think at the time that maybe they don't know any different either, but they're making some comment, and now it's kind of stuck with me. And so I think menopause is a time that we get to uncover those, and we get to have a look at them and really find out who it is, who it is that we are as a sexual being, as a woman, as someone who's maturing, as someone, and what do we want to bring to the world? So we'll talk a little bit about physical stuff in a minute, but what do we want as this person who is not, I suppose, fertile anymore? What do you want to bring to the world? What do you want? We often get, our wombs are for creation, but not only of babies, creation of anything. And whether you have a womb or it's gone, that space is still there. And so creating and finding out, well, who is it and what do I want to bring to this new space? And often it is nearly like a remembering and a relearning and rewiring the brain to be able to have more. So physically, often I find that genital massage really helps, or you depending on what word you're used to, some people call it vulva mapping or yoni mapping, or but even if you can't get to a professional, massaging your own genitals, your own vulva, and around the whole area, the whole pelvis. And if you think about it, often I think it's quite common now for people to go and get themselves massaged, but because we have such a stigma around genitals and particularly around genital massage, often we don't even, it doesn't even come to our minds that is something that's possible. Am I right?
Yeah. I mean, as far as, you hear the stories of, like, if a guy goes to a massage parlor,
yes,
the happy ending, and of course in the States here it's illegal, and I get a massage every month, and it's a woman. I mean, for me to ask her to massage my genital area, I mean, that is something that I would be uncomfortable about. But I'm close to her and I could talk to her about it, but that feels very taboo here. I know in Europe there's totally different kind of mindset about body and sexual stuff, but in the States we tend to be more closed off.
So I'm not suggesting that the next time you go and see a massage therapist, to be really clear, is you ask for them to touch your genitals, because as a massage therapist, that's not, like when I did my massage therapy training on 25 years ago, something, usually I tell this story when I'm teaching, because I actually teach, genital massage now. And so usually I tell this story during there, but my teacher, one of my moments with him was, he used to say, you can't put your fingers between somebody's toes. He says it's like touching their genitals. That's what he said. That's my memory. And obviously when years later, and I was studying, genital massage and pelvic floor and the pelvis mapping and all sorts of things, that story always, makes me laugh, because I think to myself, what would you think now if, I'm still not necessarily putting my fingers in somebody's toes, but I do encourage, genital massage and what we hold in there. So if you're someone who gets a regular massage, or even if you get your partner to massage your neck, we know the tension that we hold, and we know how good it feels when it's released. And we know that, if we go and see a chiropractor or a kinesiologist or a massage therapist, and we know that, often we come out and we feel different. We feel like our body's been put back together, and because we're not walking like this anymore and our shoulders are not up here. So, but we've never usually thought about having our pelvis or our genitals, touched by anyone other than usually our lover or medical. That's usually the two reasons that we have it done. But even just starting with ourselves, like massaging our own selves, because that will build intimacy with us. That will build our own connection and our own. So, depending on, there's a few things, different things, but coconut oil was always something really lovely for me, and really lovely for people in menopause. You have to look at, everyone's different, so you have to try these things and see whether you think they work for you. But coconut oil is really good for balancing hormones, which is often what is happening or not happening during menopause. But if you start to even massage your own genitals, as we know, what massage does is it takes all the old blood and all the old cells, and so it moves everything out, and so things can be refreshed. And part of menopause is that often that bits of areas get dry, areas get thin. So if we're massaging, so like just imagining, we would think nothing if something was happening to our shoulder or our backs of our legs, like our calves or something, and it was atrophying, like, if it was getting smaller and it was something was happening, we would think nothing of going to the physio and the chiro and the anywhere else. We would go everywhere we could to find out how to fix it. But and I think one of the things is that women don't necessarily know what they look like either. We don't, well, because most of our genitals are inside. So we don't know what other women look like, and we don't know what we look like, and so I encourage you to start to get to know, grab the massage oil and start really slowly, and it will also clear out and bring new blood flow and make things work better, and also build connection. Like, so, the mind and the body and the soul, bringing that connection will also help with regulating the hormones and regulating the blood flow and regulating arousal, so that the body actually has a connection together.
Great answer. So on the other side of that is men that have issues with ED.
Yes, or ejaculation control. Yes. Yes. So there's a few things with that. And, I'm going to say that, like, I don't have the equipment. So I'm talking from, a theoretical point of view, men I've worked with, and, I've spoken to done lots of research, because it's very, it's quite a common issue to have. So the flip side is, I've taught lots of women to massage the genitals of their partners, and the feedback that I've got is that they last twice as long. So some of the techniques, and I'm not always about trying to make a penis hard. There are Dow's principles and Teo principles that take a soft penis, and if you put it just at the entrance of the vagina, what happens is, if the vagina is ready, it will start to gently. I invite you to try this at home with yourself. The next time, you're playing, with yourself, or using a toy, or, if you're still using tampons, before you shove something in, because that's often what we are told and what we are used to, is we kind of just get it over and done with and shove something in, is to just put something there and bring that consciousness. And what will happen is that if it's ready, if the vagina is ready, it will begin to take it in. It's an amazing sort of process. And if you've never experienced it, you're sitting there thinking, she's a crackpot. It wouldn't be the first time I've heard that, so that's okay. And that's not possible. I invite you to have a go, because it's, I have surprised many, many women over the years, and myself probably at different times, that it is possible. So that's, so not only, so that's working with a soft penis as well. So I think sometimes there's a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of, that it has to be hard, that we have to wait to this. Whereas if we unwind and we talk about that slowness and we talk about savoring, then that is, we can play together, and we can, then when it is hard, if that's what we want to do, we can move into, penetration. But there are also other ways of, if you put because it's about connection. And often when I've spoken to my friends and my colleagues about it, they've all suggested that they last longer when it's about the connection, when it's about the sacredness, when it's about the love making and the fun and the joyfulness and the pleasure, when it's kind of about sex and probably about them, it's probably fast. And my other question I like to ask people is, when does sex finish and when does it begin?
Mm.
You got any answers, Barbara? What do you think?
That's an interesting question. I think it begins when you see the person, when you're together and you talk and you know, because for example, my boyfriend and I, we don't live together and we usually just see each other on the weekends because we're busy during the week. And so just having that time together, you know, having a meal, conversation, and just that is where that dance begins.
Yes.
And then as far as ending,
I mean, does it have to end? Does it have to end? That's
no,
my...
because one of the things I said early on in our relationship, or you know, getting to know each other before intimacy came into the picture, was the thing that I missed most about being in a relationship was laying in bed and being held. You know, the spooning and to me that is, it just makes me feel loved and cared for and valued. That's how I perceive that. So to me, that is just as intimate as sex acts because it makes me feel so good. It makes my heart swell.
Yes, yes, yes. And it would be like that. So that's that slowness and that savoring and that, yes. And intimacy is, you know, often long before we get to sex. And it's the conversations we're having. It's the dance. Are we dancing? Are we cooking together? Are we, you know, I remember being dating someone and he decided we would cook together. And I remember thinking, oh, this will be interesting. But anyway, both of us got in the kitchen and I went, oh, this is not going to work. It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. We can't, there's no way we're going to be able to progress to anything else because we can't cook. We can't cook together. There was no flow. I just knew there was no flow. There was no, he was funny and he liked to follow instructions and he was, you know, wanting to measure half a teaspoon and, you know, and I was like, okay, this is not going to work. So it was a really good idea to find out before anything else serious happened. So it was a really, in hindsight, it was a really good idea. But you know, it worked well for me anyway to find out that wasn't going to be effective. But yes, back to, so it doesn't have to end when we think it ends. And I would encourage, you know, often, you know, you're very lucky, and I suppose you're lucky that you have been doing these things and have these skills. And but often, you know, sex finishes when the man ejaculates. And so my encouragement, particularly if we're talking about, you know, if there's a problem in the you know, that they don't last long enough, there's no reason that because, you know, someone ejaculates that that's the end of it. That's just the end of that phase. You can have then, you still can be close and you can still move, and there's no reason to, you know, move away from each other really quickly. You can still be very, very close and very, very intimate, and you just never know that the penis may not get hard again if you don't, you know, rush things and you don't have an agenda and you don't, you know, you're not totally in your own mind about, well, what's happening. And so I think one of the things is that men need to relax, and, you know, and both people, because it's usually both, need to enjoy the sweetness and the subtleties and the other parts that make it more of a love making and make it more about pleasure and about sensation and curiosity and playfulness rather than a hard penis. Because, you know, there's
Right.
more to it. There's more to it than a hard penis.
Absolutely. I would agree.
And yes, and you're totally right with the beginning. You know, it can begin with text messages before you've seen them. It can begin with, you know, cooking together, dancing together, having, you know, those deep conversations, touching each other briefly, like teasing each other, where the little touches and then going away, and then, or more touches and then going away, or wearing something. you know, wearing something that is a bit risque for you, or them wearing, you know. So there are a lot of things that can continue to keep it going so that it doesn't have these, I suppose it's like a fire. If you've got to start from scratch all the time, that is hard work. But it's, if anyone's ever had a fire, I really love having a fire in winter. I don't currently, but I really love it. And I mean, you know, people would say in Australia you don't really need a heater, but, you know, I like my heat. I like warmth. But the thing that I find with the fire is that it kept me in the flow of the day, and it kept me like it was something that needed to be looked at all the time. You know, how was it going? I needed to refuel it. Did it need a big, was it, you know, at the stage where it needed a big log, or did it just need some little embers to keep it kind of going? Like, where was it at and what was it doing? And our relationships and our intimacy can be very similar, a very similar process where what is it and how do I keep it smoldering along? How do I keep it, you know, keep it burning? I don't want to burn it out. I know, and I probably, you know, it's great to have an intense amount of heat at times, but at the other times we want to just keep it going along and keep it smooth.
That's a good analogy. So we all have gifts, and to be able to feel open enough and connected enough to offer our gifts to each other in a relationship. How, and the other side of that gift is, there is a point in an intimate relationship, at least I've experienced it, and you sort of touched on it. There is a spiritual connection when there's intimacy and when you're lovemaking. So you've got gifts, you've got this spiritual connection with this other person. You know, how do you enhance that? How do you feel comfortable enough to give them those gifts that you've got, to be totally open and vulnerable in that experience, to bring you to that spiritual connection?
Yeah, so often that comes with safety. And so when you talked about, when you talked about being held and being spooned, that is, for me, sends, you know, the body being held and creates safety. So that touch and that holding, you know, there is a safety that comes with that, and that builds over time. And when I talked about slowing down, often, you know, slowing down our touch and getting, you know, and creating a space where we can get feedback from someone as well. So often, you know, when we want to get feedback, it often feels like it's a Spanish Inquisition, or it feels like, you know, and if, you know, so when we're slowing down, we can ask somebody, well, how does the pressure feel? What is, you know, does it feel better with more pressure or less pressure? And we can actually, you know, we can be holding them. And what, I mean, the other parts that does is, as we're touching someone, if it's good touch, then that will allow their nervous system to relax. It will allow them to feel and notice more in their body. And what happens is, you know, without getting too geeky and too technical, there's some, you know, mirror neurons in our back of our brain or back of our head. And what that happens is it will mirror what is happening in the other person. So as together, as we relax and as we access, you know, this, you know, state of relaxation, it's also the state of feeling connected. It's the state of, you know, after you've meditated, or bliss or ecstasy, you know, that's where, you know, that nervous system has come right down. So as, you know, we're being together, and for great sex, you actually need both nervous systems. You know, it's not that I like one more than the other. They're both effective when you know how to use them. But one of the things is create for more vulnerability and for more sharing and for more openness is that safety. And it's the body that needs to feel safe. It's not, it might be that our mind says everything's safe, there's nobody else here, there's nobody due home. And sometimes, you know, the other thing is that can sometimes be putting, you know, you need to turn your phone off, or you need to turn, you know, if you've got a reminder, or if you've got a child coming home, or if you've got something and you need to, then those are the things that can distract us. So setting up a reminder or setting things, they are the things that keep us in our bodies and keep us safe, so that we can, when we be fully open with someone. Having those conversations that we don't necessarily like to have is something that brings us into that vulnerability, into that, and creating, and you know, yes, it's one of those things that builds over time. So we take a little move, and then we feel safe, and we go, okay, that's good. And then we take another little move, and we go, oh, that's great, that feels safe too. And so it's like building our deposits and building our safety, and, you know, knowing yourself what creates safety for you. And it might be the room temperature, it might be touching, it might be that you like to be held, it might be that you or things that you don't like. You know, I don't like poking or pain or any. It's not my thing. It doesn't work for me. And often I've worked on it, but often it can trigger me. So if we know our own selves well enough to know, please don't poke me. Please don't, you know, don't do any like any sharp movements and things. Don't do it. It doesn't work for me. Whereas, you know, nice holding, nice slow touching, like long, give me some time to spend somewhere. And I think sometimes we're in a hurry. We want to touch here, we want to touch here, we want to touch here. Whereas, well, what happens if we slowed right down and took our time to explore different parts of our bodies with ourselves, and also then with our partners? Because, you know, there's not much use expecting our partners to know us if we don't. I mean, we might get lucky and it might happen every now and again, but if we really want to know ourselves and create something, then it needs to come from us first.
Wow, we've touched on a lot of really great topics. Mm-hmm. And is there anything else you would like to add?
Is there anything else I'd like to add? Oh, geez, a million things. No. So what I'd like to add, but I suppose what I would, is trusting our bodies. And so when we're slow, when we're deliberate, when we're conscious, because often, you know, particularly new arousal, we often, I don't know if this happens for you, Barbara, but I know it happens for me. You know, most of the time I'm well articulated and I have good communication skills and boundaries, and I've told you I don't like this and I like this, and I'm like, but something, when you know, something happens, sexually aroused, the words don't always come as quickly, and sometimes things don't flow as well. So one of the ideas of bringing slowness allows us to trust our bodies and trust that they will know how to move, they will know how to touch. And if I'm connected to myself and connected to my partner, then there is a trust that builds. There is that. And if I slow down and I breathe, and maybe like look at each other, sit together, have the conversations, you know, look, you know, my current partner, when we had our first meeting, I like to look at people. That's what, you know, that's what I do, regardless of. And, you know, I sat there and looked at him for quite some time, and he said it felt like I was examining his soul, and I probably was, to be quite honest. And I was looking for, and the other thing is, you know, I can be quite intense, and if you're going to be with me, my level of intensity and enthusiasm and playfulness needs to be okay. Because if it's not, and, you know, you're going to be put off by, you know, me looking at you, then we have nowhere to go. So But that looking at each other and building that comfortableness, building that, you know, that spooning, that closeness, that will brings an infinite amount of wisdom and trust into a relationship.
Thank you. Wow. That was definitely great information. I hope that with our audience, I know it connected with me a lot, and I'm hoping that it does with our audience also. Do you have a free gift to offer our guests?
I do have a free gift, and it's, you know, perfect for what we've been talking about. So thank you. And so it's an ebook, and it'll be a downloadable, and it's the 5 principles to sacred lovemaking. So it has the 5 principles in there. It has you know, actual techniques on how to bring them to life as well. Because, you know, it's one thing being able to read a book. The other thing is you need to be able to take it and actually practice it. It's the practice. And when I feel people resistance to practice, and like I'm practicing pleasure, like, you know, but it's the practice that changes the way we live, and changes our neurology, and changes the relationships that we have. So it's detailed for someone to be able to read it and then practice it.
Great. Thank you so much for that generous offer of an ebook. That's great. And I've truly enjoyed our conversation today. And
Me too, Mama. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. All right. Have a good day, audience.